Welcome back to Shoney Small Engine, guys. I got this Murray 8 horsepower in with the Tecumseh engine. Um, Guy says that he can't get a starter for the season. Let it sit over the summertime. There is fuel in it, so I'm assuming he probably left some bad fuel in there. But I did a compression check with the compression tester, and I did get 135 pounds. So I know that's good. I put my inline spark tester on, and I do have spark. So there is fuel in there. My guess is it's old, but could have some dirty carb. I'll show you real quick. Got the choke on, keys in, throttle's on. I can actually hear a little bit of fuel, but not much. And it's not going to start for me. So I tried it a bunch of times. So this sounds like a classic carb clean for me. I'm gonna drain the fuel. There's no fuel cutoff switch on there, so I'm gonna add one of those. I'll show you how to do that real fast. But this is gonna be a real quick video. Try to get that carb cleaned. All right, so we got two Phillips head bolts here. Get those off, and then there's a 5/16 here, and there's one out front here. Sometimes you got to move the chute out of the way, and then we got to pop the choke lever off. Now this will slide to the side. There's an attachment here for the key, but it wasn't even attached, which shouldn't matter. You'll still get spark if it's not attached or attached. I can see the fuel coming here. Doesn't smell too good. A quick tip here on these Tecumsehs, there's a little spring underneath here. You can kind of drain some of the fuel out. If you push on that spring, the fuel come out, and you can kind of see what it looks like in there. And you can see it's pretty yellow. So that fuel's not good. That could be the problem, but because I want to make sure that this thing is gone over fully and not giving them problems throughout the season, I'm going to take the whole carb apart and give it a good clean. It might not even be that dirty, but I'm going to show you how to do it anyway. But definitely got some bad fuel in there. So we're going to drain the fuel tank. We're going to get this carburetor off, and we're going to get it all cleaned up. Next thing I want to do here is get this primer line off. That goes up to this primer bulb. So then right here we have two bolts holding this intake off. I like to take the whole intake off, but before I do that, I want to try to get the fuel line off because that's a little bit harder to do when the carburetor is loose. We'll try to move this hose clamp over a little bit. I'm gonna free up this hose a little. There we go. Now let's see if I can get a screwdriver behind there. I know it's a little dark and hard to see, but so I'm just loosening up the fuel line, getting a screwdriver behind it. I'm going to try to work it out. All right, it's pretty loose. It's kind of binding up against the back. So now that hose is pretty loose, I'm going to take the intake off here. This is a T30 torque spit on this one. Some are Phillips head. This one's a little hard to get into because the muffler's in the way. Sometimes you got to loosen the muffler. Nope, I got it. I should be able to pop the fuel line off. There we go. All right, now let's get these bolts off, and it's only going to be attached by the governor arm, the throttle. So we're going to lift up here, tilt this down and out. All right, I'm just got to leave that all there. And there's our carburetor. I take the whole thing off. You could take it off by these bolts. I just find it a lot easier to just take these two off than trying to get these guys off. It's hard to get in behind here and get the bolts. All right, and then when you put it back on, you got to line everything up. This way is a lot easier. Now that we have the carb, let's get this bowl off. This is a 1/2 inch nut, which is also your jet, which I can tell that's pretty clogged up there. Usually you can see right through that hole. So that's going to be a problem. That's why the fuel isn't getting up into the intake very well. And it's also dirty. And here's the fuel bowl gasket. And you can see how dirty some of that fuel is and still some soot and dirt in there. That's going to get clogged up into the jet. So your needle and seat, which already fell out. Seat's still in there. I usually take an inspection of that. If it looks pretty nice and smooth in there, it's a little rubber I guess a little rubber gasket in there. Then if that looks good, which it does. If it's all torn up and cracked and falling apart, that's not a good sign. That means you got to replace that seat right there. Otherwise, it looks pretty good. I also want to get the pilot jet out, which is on the side right here. Little flathead. Sometimes it has a little plastic cover on it. You just got to pop that cover off, and then that'll be your pilot jet right there. If your engine's running and it's running like surging, especially a low idle and won't idle very well, this is usually your problem. So I'm just going to do a quick cleanup in here. Don't get too much carb cleaner down in there. You got an O-ring in there. You don't want to get that swell. You don't want to swell that up and let it deteriorate. So I'm going to clean the rest of it up real quick. Some carb clean. Make sure you never blow air this way, or you can, but very lightly, because you'll pop the seat out and go flying across the room, and you'll probably never find it again. Then you definitely have to replace it. All right, that looks pretty good to me. I don't have to do too much to the carburetor. There's a little vent right there. If you're having a carburetor that's leaking air, make sure that that's not clogged. Sometimes a little dirt gets caught in there and or packed in front of there, or grease or whatever, anything from picking up on the street. That gets clogged, and then that won't vent, and then your carburetor will leak. So make sure that that's open. All right, let me set that aside. Let's get the main jet. Let's get this cleaned. Again, I'm gonna use some carb clean on this. Some air, and if it doesn't open up, then I'm gonna use my carb clean tools. There's a tiny little hole right here that you got to make sure that that guy is nice and free too. So usually I can tell either when I'm spraying through, I'll clog up, I'll cover these ends. If I spray air through, I can usually feel it coming out of that hole. And I do. So that's good. That's good. Just to make sure, sometimes I just run a torch tip cleaner through just to make sure everything is free and nothing stuck to the edges. All right, looks good. You can even put one through this little hole here. But I know it looks good. All right. Same thing. We'll do this with the pilot. Now this is a really, really small hole. The torch tips are going to be too big for that. I use a little piece of wire. As long as I can see it come through the hole down here, I do. It's kind of hard to tell, but you can see it just barely getting in there. All right. That means that's nice and clean. So let me blow some carb clean through it. And a little bit of air. All right. Those are good. Let me clean the bowl out real fast. Sometimes these bowls are really, really dirty, and you have to use a little bit of make it like a Brillo pad or a soft scrub. So you don't want to soak one of these bowls in a lot of strong chemicals like carb clean, because this rubber gasket will swell, and then you'll get a leak out of the bottom. This is how you drain. That's how you drain the carburetor when it's got some dirty gas in it, and you just want to empty the carb and get new fresh stuff in from the tank. All right, it doesn't have to be perfect. These little stains in the corners aren't gonna cause you any problems. You could really go crazy trying to clean that. And the problem is this is a very thin aluminum, and if you have some pitting in here, eventually you're going to wear through it, and then you'll end up with some leaks there too. So you don't want to go too crazy. Make sure that this little lip is nice and clear for the gasket. And the float looks pretty good. Just rinse it off. One problem you can have with bowls too is you could get a little pinhole leak, and then it'll end up sinking, and then you're going to leak that way because it doesn't shut off the fuel. So a couple issues that you'll run into, but this is just a carb cleaning demonstration. So let's get back to putting this back together. We'll get the pilot jet we'll put in first. That goes in snug. I'm going to put the needle on the bowl here, and just take a peek at your needle, make sure it's not all gummed up, which this one's in good shape. That drops down onto the seat, don't lose it. I'm going to slide the pin through. You can put a suction on here to see if you're getting good suction. Sometimes I just wipe it down and use my mouth. If you hear that little pop, when I let go, that means I'm getting good suction, and it should blow as soon as I open it up, which is good. All right. Make sure you don't lose this little spring here on these 8, 9, 10 horsepower Tecumseh. Has this little spring here for the choke. Otherwise, this lever is a little loose. This tiny little metal bar. It'll pop out easy. Okay. Anyway, let's get back on here. Let's get this bowl on, which the bowl gasket, which is in nice shape. Sometimes these are flattened and dry rotted. This one's in good shape, so I'm not going to worry about that. Make sure the gasket for the drain plug is in place. Sometimes it's still on the drain plug. Make sure it's in good shape. This one is. I'm not going to worry about that either. If these parts are in rough shape, I replace them every time. But this one's in good shape. It was just I think this is more of a situation of some bad gas, a little bit of dirt in that carburetor. So I don't have to do too much to this. As basically clean it out a little bit. Okay. Now let's get this back on. I think that's in good shape. I'll take that and let's go back to the machine. I'm going to replace this fuel line, which is kind of an ordeal. I had to take the fuel tank off, and I got to fish a new line through there. I'm not going to show that. I have it on other videos. So I'm going to do that real quick, and then I'll get back to putting the carburetor back on. All right, got a new fuel line fished through. I have the tank off. I'm going to put a fuel cutoff switch on here, but this is ready to go. So now let's get the carburetor back on. I'll line this fuel line up right away. Push that through a little bit. We'll hook up the primer line, which looks like it's in good shape. And then we'll get these T30 bolts back in. Sometimes it's pretty easy to tell which hole this goes through because there's some wear marks, but if not, it'd be a good idea to mark where that governor arm goes before you take it off. All right, let me get the gas tank on and we'll put some fresh fuel on it, and we'll give it a try, see if we can get it to start. All right, fuel tank's back on. Let's get this cover back on. I am going to hook up the the switch just because that's how it's supposed to be. That's this little green wire down here. Just hook it on. All right. Feed the choke through. I'll put the choke lever on right away. Holds it in place. We got the 5/16 back up here. Another 5/16 in the front. The 2 Phillips on the side. Now I want to add some gas and see if we can get this to start. I highly recommend using non-ethanol gas if you can find it. All right, choke is on, throttle on. Now I can hear a lot more fuel coming out of there if you can see that. Let's give it a try. All right, cool. Runs pretty good. The only problem is the idle's a little high, so I'm gonna have to adjust that. If I can't adjust it from the little screw that's right here, I'm gonna have to adjust it from the governor arm, which means I'll have to take that plate off. But that's how you clean a carburetor. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments, guys. Thanks for watching. Appreciate all the comments and likes. Check out some of my other videos, and make sure you like, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys next time. Thanks for watching.